In this episode of Another Zelda Podcast, David is joined by TC DeWitt of Studio Demands It to review the first 3 episodes of the Legend of Zelda TV show. Hello and welcome to Another Zelda Podcast. I am David Geisler, your host for tonight's episode, and tonight I am joined by a very special guest, a gentleman who is returning. He was on an episode back in, I think it was end of season 2, TC DeWitt. Hello, welcome to the show.
That's me.
How are you?
I am here. Was that season 2?
I'm losing track. I think you might have been. It was the Silent Protagonist episode,
yes,
and I think that was towards the end of season 2, actually, if I may.
A lot of fun. I'm happy to be back here to talk some more Zelda with you.
Yeah,
and
it was an absolute blast. So you are a co-host of another Sixfive show that I am so happy to produce with you called The Studio Demands It.
That's right.
Well, actually, I think it's Studio Demands It.
Studio Demands It, yeah.
Is it Studio Demands It? Not the... Yeah.
When Jim and I'd say it, we say it like pigs in space. We're like, the studio demands it.
I like it. Well, it's got that kind of big font that kind of expands like that. So on your guys' show, what do you do for our listeners if they're not familiar? Even though if they've listened to your episode on season 2,
they might,
they might know. But anyway. Also, by the way, they probably hear your ad every episode.
Good then.
Yeah. End of ad.
I sound like such a jackass. The ad says it all. The studio demands it every week. Every episode, we take a demand from a listener that is a hypothetical studio. And
like a hypothetical movie studio.
Hypothetical movie studio or television studio. We've done a couple TV episodes, but we have to pitch, conceptualize, and craft a complete film based on the demands of the studio.
Right.
And we have 2 types of episodes to be a little more clear. People will say, this movie exists. Ghostbusters 2016 existed, but it's not very good. Okay. Assuming these were the demands that they were given, meet those demands, but make a better movie. And so then we will recraft the film based on what we think they were told they had to do. Or someone will say, this movie should exist. So a good example is Predator 3 didn't come out. There's no Predator 3.
There have been Predator sequels, quote unquote,
right.
but
there was
Predator
never
3.
a Predator 3. And seeing as there was a 3-year gap between the first one and the second one, making that 3-year gap exist. Yep. So 1995, what would that Predator 3 be like?
Who would you cast? How would you write it?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
And so we take the demands of our listeners. We don't know what we're going to do until we start recording.
Right. So which I think is key. I think it's cool.
All on the spot. Occasionally I'll pick the demand early, like that night, and be like, all right, let me just sift through what we have here. A lot of the conversations will be like, Jim, do you want to do sci-fi or action?
Yeah.
Sci-fi. Okay.
And then we grab these. Yeah. And then also we have on the website, studiodemandsit.com, listeners can click a little button and submit their studio demands.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll kick those over to you and you might see them for just a split second. It's just enough to like log it and throw it in a bin, metaphorically speaking or figuratively speaking. But it's a little bit like when I do listener feedback on this show, which actually we don't have listener feedback this episode. I'm so sorry. We have so many people that are replying to us and giving us wonderful things. But because you and I don't know if our listeners know, but we kind of brought this production together very quickly tonight. You're in town for work, for a film that you're directing. And I have the opportunity to have you stay at my place tonight. And we said, we got to squeeze in an AZP episode.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So with that said, I didn't have much time to prepare. And so we don't have listener feedback tonight. But when I do my listener feedback, I'll catch it like on Twitter or on Facebook or on iTunes very quickly. And I do a screen grab and I throw it into a Google Drive folder and I don't look at it.
And then forget it.
Yeah, until I read it for real on the show again. And so a lot of times when I'm reading this listener feedback on the show, there are times where I sound surprised by what someone's saying. Completely authentic.
Yeah.
It's me reading it for the first time in many ways.
It's similar with us. The spontaneity makes it that much more interesting. And then it demands quality from us to not, like when Jim and I pitch and talk movies together just off
camera,
not
off
recording,
mic.
not recording, we will often get on an idea and take a moment to like think about it. But having 15, 20 seconds of silence on a podcast is not going to hack it. So it's like we have to keep the train rolling.
Yes.
And if that's me going, Hey, this is great radio right now as Jim sits here Googling something.
My favorite moment was, I think it was in the Inception episode. We literally heard his scroll wheel scrolling on the mouse because you guys you're obviously doing some remote episodes right now, or at least you were back then. And I heard like, and I heard it as I was, kind of putting the finishing touches on it. And then I was like, is that his mouse? And then in the episode you go, Jim, I can hear your mouse right now. So I'm going to vamp.
Yeah.
Because he was scrolling for info about something.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So last season we did, you guessed it on Studio Demands It, and we crafted what would a Zelda or an Adventures of Zelda film
an
be.
Adventures of Zelda film. That's what the game is called.
The Adventures of the Zelda, the one in the green.
Yeah.
With the yellow hair.
Yeah, Zelda's the guy.
Zelda has the sword.
Yeah.
The Adventures of... We watched The Adventures of Zelda today, right? Didn't we?
In a way, we did.
Isn't that what the name of the show is?
No.
Is it just Legend of Zelda?
It's the Legend of Zelda.
I know that's the name of the game. I thought the show was
also the name of the show.
I thought the show... I'm an idiot.
No. You're getting confused with the Adventure of Link, which is the second Zelda game, which this show did reference a little bit. Yeah. And then there is Zelda's Adventure, which was a game that came out for the CDI when it's not canon.
I've lost all your fans right now. They're like, we do not respect this guy. He does not know that.
It's just,
I know Link is the one in the green, by the way.
Dude,
I was just being silly.
Dude, it was you misspoke, and I took the opportunity to totally rip you to shreds for it.
You actually me.
Maybe
I don't know if that's made it onto Studio Demands It, but Jim and I have talked about when you take two fingers, lift your glasses, raise your other two hands above your head and say, actually, is the salute of the Geek Nation. Yeah. Actually.
Well, okay. So we chose, so actually you don't even know this yet, but Alyssa Ortiz, who has been on the show a little bit more recently, she's a coworker. She was on an episode back in season 2, and she's been in on 2 or 3 episodes this season now already, based on the release order of these episodes. We're recording this one a bit early, full disclosure. She very kindly and openly lent me the DVDs of the 10 episodes or whatever it is, 12 episodes of
DVDs.
The Legend of Zelda TV show.
The Adventures of Zelda.
The Adventures of Zelda TV show. And the Adventures of Zelda.
Well, excuse me, David.
There it is. And actually, the truth is, because she was so kind of generous to lend the DVDs to me and to the show in many ways, I said, okay, Alyssa, well, you got to be a part of the episodes where we review these.
Okay.
And you and I had to bring this episode together fairly quickly. And we had a couple ideas. We were going to maybe do, I don't know, wasn't there a top 10 like items of blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
And those episodes are always wonderful. They really give you a great reason to talk about things, to deep dive into a dungeon or deep dive about these weird little details of a game that you wouldn't normally talk about in broader strokes. But admittedly, I was like, okay, well, he's coming from a show called Studio Demands It. You are a screenwriter and a director and an actor and of the film industry in your trade.
Yeah.
That I thought, well, maybe we could do something a little bit more entertainment based or like, film based or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And in many ways, the episode you were on last season was kind of in that of that ilk, you could say.
Certainly, it was about the writing of a character who doesn't talk.
Yeah. How do you write a character when they don't talk? It was a great conversation. We've had a lot of great feedback from that episode. One of which was a few listeners that actually'd us and noticed that Link technically does say, "Come here," in like Wind Waker. So
true.
There's that.
And he also hip hop hip hip.
It's true, but no, it's nice. But those deep dive details from our fans is something I thoroughly enjoy.
I love it.
So I messaged Alyssa today, and I basically asked her permission. I said, "All right, thank you so much for the DVDs. I think what we're going to do is we're not going to watch the whole season. There's 12 episodes. Maybe this becomes 4 episodes peppered throughout the next couple of AZP seasons. Maybe every 9th episode is
going back to this show.
You know what I mean?" And I said, TC DeWitt from Studio Demands is in town. I'd really love it if we could watch the first 3 episodes of the show and talk about them. And she texted me back and I said, I'm kind of asking your permission because initially I was going to do it with you. And I said, I'd love to do the next 3 with you, or who knows what'll come to be. Maybe it'll be a group thing. Who knows? Yeah. Without hesitation, she texted back. She said, "Oh, that sounds like a great idea. Do it. That's great. Awesome. Can't wait." So we have Alyssa's approval. She donated or lent rather the television show to us.
DVDs.
We watched it on a DVD player.
Yep.
which I had to wire into the TV here.
Blew dust off it like it was an an artifact found by Indiana Jones.
There was literally dust on it, on the DVD player. And here we are. So TC, what I would like to do tonight is we have 3 episodes to talk about.
Sure.
I think we'll talk about one and maybe half of one. We'll take our break and talk about the others. Or maybe we'll actually do the first episode, take a break, and do the final 2. I think that'll work out better with this intro. I don't know exactly. I think we'll give a rundown as to what happens in each episode, and then we'll discuss the episodes. Sound good?
Yeah.
These are 15-minute episodes. Originally, they came out. So I think a lot of people remember. Now, I'm probably going to get this name wrong. The Super Mario Super Show. Isn't that what it was called?
The Adventures of the Super Mario Super
I think it was
Show.
The Adventures of Princess Peach.
That's right. Swing your arms from side to side. Come on, everybody. Let's do the Mario.
There it is. You've regained your cred. So the Super Mario Brothers Super Show was a I think it was like every day.
Yeah, it was like a morning, like before you go to school type
perhaps.
show.
I feel like maybe sometimes I caught it. Maybe it was different television networks, but I would catch it like when I got home from school sometimes.
Yeah, it was just this crappy, like cash in on the property with very little interest or information about the IP that they're messing with.
There's actually 3 phases of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. One that references mostly Super Mario Brothers 2, then there's one that starts to reference Super Mario Brothers 3, and there's another one that continues on. There's a whole other episode for a completely different podcast about that show.
Yeah.
However, one of the things that happened was on every Friday of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show would not show a Mario Brothers episode. They would show a Legend of Zelda episode. Yeah. And I remember not knowing much about the Legend of Zelda, and I would I couldn't wait.
You Goldbloomed. That's how excited you were just now.
Oh, it sounded like I was swearing there. I was not. I was just going SHSH like he did when he heard that Tom Holland wouldn't be Spider-Man anymore. But anyways, so this show came out on the Fridays. There's only 12 episodes. There's 1 season. It was designed to be syndicated. They just knew they were going to just pump this thing and repeat it for kids.
I loved this. I can remember loving this because I am a huge Zelda fan. I was being silly before, and I was like, not knowing that Link is the main character.
Oh, we all know you're joking. It's okay.
I don't want to offend your fans.
We had a whole conversation about why Link doesn't talk a year ago.
Yeah, okay.
They know you know.
I loved this, but I have not seen it since I was like 11.
Yeah.
So coming back to it now, I don't know if I even remembered anything of these 3 episodes we saw. Like nothing looked familiar to me.
The second episode I caught on YouTube a year or 2 ago, just being curious. I do remember seeing this. It's interesting when you watch TV as a kid. Something that it's easy to forget as an adult is that kids watch like 5 minutes of television. And in other words, if there's 30 minutes of television, if it's a 30-minute television block or whatever, 24 minutes, whatever it is, kids kind of give the screen their attention only in these like couple minute spurts. And then they're playing with the toy they're playing with.
Legos
or they're getting off the couch, or they're jumping onto a thing, or they're drinking their milk, and they don't see, a minute of the episode because of the cups in their face. And I'm kind of not joking. I have a nephew right now who's in that phase. And I even noticed, just as a quick comment, there's moments in this show where the motive of the characters was repronounced directly.
This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, this is what I'm doing right now. Yeah. And it would happen.
Hey, kid, pay attention. This is what I'm doing
every
right
8 minutes or so. And that's just because kids' attention spans are so short. So to that point, I remember the visuals of this show.
Yeah.
I remember like loving watching it, but beyond my memory, like, so Link's now in a scary castle, and there's a skeleton, and he shot it with his laser sword. Yes, I mean laser sword, not lightsaber. A sword that shoots lasers. His laser sword. He got the skeleton, and that green face is scary, and then you're out. Like that's all the longer a memory lasts. It's not like I don't really remember like the narrative arc of why something's going to one thing to the next. So to watch these as adults was interesting. So let's, if you don't mind, I'm starting to ramble a bit. So let's discuss the first episode, which was titled The Ringer.
The Ringer.
So TC, can you give us a little walkthrough?
All right. So you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, but it appears this takes place after the original game, the very first game.
I did do a little bit of research about this before our episode, and generally the show references a universe that appears to exist after the first game, but it does have some light references to the second game, even though that's, if you're getting really weirdly canonical, that may not be conceived. Maybe to some degree, this game technically exists after the second game.
This show exists after the
second game, even though most of its references are the first. Anyway,
so Link has victoriously saved Hyrule and now lives in the castle, and he hates it.
It would appear. Our
appear-
first 5 seconds of the very first episode is like Link is bored.
Well, because Zelda has her Triforce, the Triforce of Courage.
She's Courage. Yep.
Courage. And
No. She's Wisdom. Sorry.
Courage was not introduced in the first game,
Courage doesn't exist in this show so far. We've only watched the first 3 episodes.
and it's only the 2. But in the first game, there's only 2.
You know, in the first game, there's kind of only one.
Okay, it's
like a triangle. Okay. It's the 8 pieces of a triangle.
Gotcha. Okay. So Link lives in the castle. He's bored because he should be out adventuring, and he's, woo, hey baby, take your top off to Zelda, and she's like, I don't like you.
Oh, so that was uncomfortable. Like the first scene in the show, he wakes up, complains about not being on adventures, being stuck in the castle, which the weird 1950 marriage metaphors or whatever's going on there is
it's like a Flintstones
tremendously uncomfortable. Some of the writing is about the fidelity of a Flintstones episode. Yes. And he goes to his balcony and he looks down and sees Zelda and he says like, well, at least there's one good reason to be here.
The
view. He sees beautiful Zelda, but then, oh my gosh, she turns around and frankly, he, if I may, like gets a view down her chest or whatever. And says like, well, at least that's a great view. And I was like, what is happening right now?
Then she comes up and punches him in the face for it. So, and
right,
then Ganon wants to steal the Triforce and attacks with some of his minions.
Oh, remember she's holding a festival to find
the
magicians.
Wizard. That's right.
Wizards.
Zelda's holding some amateur wizard competition for
Hyrule,
reasons. For reasons. And Ganon shows up
pretending to be one of those wizards
in order to then steal the Triforce, which seems to be every episode is just, oh, get that Triforce.
I think all 3 he tried to get the Triforce.
That's the episode, and then Link stops him. It seems to me that Link.
You're so upset about this.
No, I'm just what I'm more interested in is that Link is a prick.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Zelda is not very nice to him, but also continually submits to his pervy nature.
There's this weird like it's like I feel like the person writing it thinks that they're writing some like pithy dialogue back and forth.
This is just like Some Like It Hot. This is Cary Grant shooting zingers in Arsenic and Old Lace, right? No, it's not.
Yeah.
But to the other point, to positive points here, all the action is animated really well.
Yeah, it was fine.
Like his one-liners suck and the dialogue sucks, but the actual like animation, especially for the era, it's really fluid. It's well choreographed.
Yeah, it's not the Flintstones thing where only the mouth is moving and only and even to the point where sometimes the drawings aren't even at their best. They're distorted and weird because you can see that they're drawing full cell animation each time.
Good effort there. And Zelda is very capable of defending herself. Link isn't rescuing the damsel in distress. She's very rarely, at least in the 3 episodes we watched, a damsel in distress.
It's weird because most of the time she's actually using the items.
Yes, yeah.
He kind of has his laser sword, but she used a boomerang in one of them. I think it might have been the 3rd.
Yeah, the boomerang, and she's using the light arrow.
She uses the light arrow, which is accurate because I think she kind of Zelda definitely in later games uses the light arrow, like in Wind Waker, and she gives Link the light arrow. The light arrow is like a thing at the end of Zelda games, of course. That's a little bit before. All those things happened after this show started, but I guess that foundation was already set. The thing that's weird about this show, even this first episode, let's say, Link is makes uncomfortable advances towards Zelda.
Now kiss me.
Like, there are moments of questionable consent. Quite frankly.
No. All right, come on. No. You know you wanna. No.
bit. Yeah, it's a bit that happens.
And
it's really uncomfortable.
So Ganon shows up for the amateur wizard competition and then uses his magic as a distraction to get up into the tower to steal the Triforce, and then creates a dragon for them to fight. And Link slays the dragon, and they fight Ganon, and they manage to save the Triforce, and Ganon scurries away. Right?
I think
we literally just watched this, and I'm like,
we just watched it. I'm already having a hard time remembering. We just watched it. Ganon grabs the Triforce and goes back to a dungeon, and don't they actually have to go into the dungeon and they follow him?
I thought that was in the second episode.
Well, see, maybe the fact that we watched 3 right back to back is getting a little blurry here. Maybe we don't do episode 1, 2, and 3. Maybe we just talk about all 3 in general.
Yeah.
I think we got to pull an audible here or do a little pivot in the episode.
Yeah, well, looking specifically at that first episode of Link just being, this is so boring. I'm an adventurer. Oh, now's my chance to slay some. What did you call those? The creatures that appear.
Oh, so I want to speak about that for a second.
Yeah.
One thing that is very cool about the show is all of the names of the bad guys are accurate
To the original game.
Yeah, to the original game. And their depiction is so accurate that I was able to accidentally say like, look at the Stalfos, or like, look at Goma. Look at, and then
Get them, Goma.
a few seconds later, Ganon was saying like, get him, Goma. And I was like, whoa, they're really doing it. The only thing that was weird is the Zoras in the 3rd episode were pronounced Zola. Z-O-L-A instead of Z-O-R-A. Not sure why. There might have been some lost in translation stuff there, but Zora, Zolas. But in every other way, the Tektites, like everything, you could tell
straight from.
It was authentic.
Yeah, for as weirdly lacking in effort the script seemed to have it to be true to the characters themselves. There's a lot of great effort made to the villains, the action. The sound effects are straight from the game. The music score is straight from the game.
There are times where the music is straight from the game, and then there's times where it's like orchestrated versions of the songs. But they do both, which is cool. I think I said when we were watching one of the episodes, I just kind of said like, I feel like all the details are right, but the branding is wrong.
That's right.
It's just like, it's not the Zelda brand, but like they got the check boxes checked.
Yeah. It was like someone watched Zelda be played from the other room and was like, I got it. I can do this.
Now, how much of this do you think was just informed by what cartoons were in the mid 80s?
Well, I mean, I kept making Thundercats references. Like, Momra, Ganon.
Yeah. Well, he had the same voice.
Yeah.
It was like every bad.
I'm
Ganon.
Even the way they like teleport away, that like, was
the blue.
very of the era. I wonder how much of this was informed by what was popular at the time. I'd have to look at what other cartoons were popular at the time, because it so doesn't feel. You put it best. Everything looks right, but the branding is wrong.
Yeah.
So
Link being upset about everything. I think it's, I don't know. Maybe okay.
He's unlikable. He's not.
I mean, he full on is unlikable. Yeah. We finally at the end of episode 3, in which a different character shows up called the White Knight. So there's an episode called the White Knight. This character who's not canon in these games at all shows up, and he's a very beautiful prince, and has a wonderful
handsome Prince Charming.
Yeah, it looks like he's
elegant even.
He's acclaimed, right? And he wins the affection of Zelda to some degree. And at the end, well, actually, this is the weird part. Ganon realizes that he can defeat the White Knight because the White Knight won't want to get dirty.
He can't get dirty.
So he creates a situation in which Zelda is captured and brought into a swamp, and the White Knight won't go in there.
Sorry.
Because he doesn't want to get dirty.
I certainly can't get dirty.
And the weirdest part about this episode is that Ganon is the one bringing the lesson. Ganon's the one like, his weakness is that he's too vain.
Yeah.
And
before Vanity come the fall.
I know, you said go like Ganon. I mean, you're onto something.
We weirdly saw growth from Link by the 3rd episode.
Well, this is what I'm trying to get to. Yeah. So let's talk about that growth.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to go up, talk any more about episode 1 before we took a quick break.
I'm jumping to 3. I don't think we're doing the 1, 2, 3 format. I think because once I realized that all these kind of blurred together for us, let's just jump around.
Yeah. Link being this just horn dog for the first one, and even the second one, like
I think the second one's a little worse.
yeah, where he's like belts him and Zelda together for the fight against the bone creatures. Where he's like, wrap my belt around you. Like, why are we back to back right now?
Well, at first it seems like maybe a cool fight thing. There's a moment where he bends down and then that puts her up, and it feels a bit of like a Rush Hour, Jackie Chan, Chris Tucker relationship where like, oh, we're belted together, so we did some cool action moves. But that's like 34 frames of this show. That is not. It's like a second and a half. Everything else with the belt, once they win the fight, let's talk about what happens there.
He like won't loosen the belt. And he's like, only way I'm gonna get out of this is if you give me a kiss.
Yeah,
no,
they're belted together.
Face to face.
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm gonna get this belt undone, Zelda. I guess we might as well kiss.
And she's like asking him. She's like, no, like take the belt off. And he said, no, only if a kiss. And then like there's a little bit of this is where Zelda swings all over the place with the writing.
Okay.
She's like, okay, I guess you kind of deserve a thing.
Yeah.
And then they go for the kiss, and then the fairy interrupts
Sprite
them.
shows up, which, talking about the second episode being worse for Link, the premise of the second episode is the castle is messy. And Zelda, oh, Link, you're so courageous and heroic and strong, right? Yeah, that's right. I sure am. Great. You need to clean the castle. And he's like, oh man, I don't want to clean the castle. So you know what I'm going to do? Lie.
He literally says that.
Looks right at the camera and says, I'm going to lie. I'm going to pretend I'm sick.
Like
there's a supporting character we just mentioned earlier, but Sprite, who's like a Tinkerbell.
Well, she's Tinkerbell or maybe Navi, but before Navi existed.
Yeah. And she's in love with Link.
I'm sure they came up with that name for the show. Sprite, obviously, they were sprites in the game. I think there's they're having a little fun with the reference, and it also feels like a fairy type name. But she has no justification for being there.
There's no there's fairies. Like when you go get the fairy fountain, and you get.
I mean, there's that. Yeah, I mean, there's fairies in those games, but the fairy doesn't follow Link until Ocarina of Time, which is years later. But anyway,
so you're saying this Sprite character set the standard for what Navi.
Yeah, I think Miyamoto and Anuma and all the rest saw this show and said, "That's
those
what
Americans got it right.
They got it right. We need brooms that are dancing. We saw it in Fantasia. We'll put it in the show."
Yeah, I think so. Ganon once again shows up to try to steal the Triforce in the second episode, and Link is sick, and Sprite's going to get him an orange to make him feel better, and Ganon's like, I
guess I get it. Vitamin C, if you're
sure,
sick.
But he zaps. It looks like he's trying to zap magic
the
at the orange,
yeah.
But he hits Sprite instead, and then there's no indication of anything happening.
Well, except she flies really fast. She kind of gets juiced up into a nitro, and she's flying really fast. But then nothing happens
until she tries to help clean the room for Link because he's lying about being sick. We'll get to smooching time in a second. And then Sprite tries to use her magic, and it goes haywire. She's super powerful magic. Like, oh my god, my magic's so powerful now. And then cut to Ganon. Excellent. My plan is working exactly as I expected.
It's like, really?
What was your plan,
I think
man?
you were aiming for the orange, and your plan was she has great magic?
I told you the delivery on that line was supposed to be great, that my plan worked exactly how I expected it.
And what was even weirder about that episode is that Ganon very easily
he's in the castle.
Is just hanging out in the castle.
Gonna get that Triforce.
I mean, maybe he's up on the, I don't know, what are the
parapet or whatever.
Whatever they're called. And he's kind of on the outside areas of the castle, but he's just chilling. He's just like in the castle town shooting his lasers all over the place.
No trouble getting in that castle.
Right.
Every time. Like, I'm gonna get that Triforce again, climb the side of the building. I'm in the room. I got it. I'm literally gonna take it back to my
In episode 3, he sits on the back of a giant centipede or pill bug that just climbs up a tower right in the castle, and no one sees him.
Got it.
So, what's interesting, what struck me about that second episode was, I just made this joke about kids only having like a 1 minute attention span or whatever. Ganon zapping Sprite with the magic, that doesn't return until 7-8 minutes later in the episode, and we only know it returns because Sprite herself says something like, "Oh my goodness, my magic!
My magic's crazy."
She's totally normal in the meantime. And then let's see what happens. All the weird. The royal flush happens.
Oh God. Oh well, yes. Like the brooms go frickin' Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Link opens the door and gets hit by a tidal wave and is like, well, I guess that's what you call a royal flush.
She and Zelda get washed down an entire staircase.
Yeah, and she's like, we don't have time for your jokes. That was a joke. And then they have to go to actually get to Ganon. That's when they do the belt thing.
No, Belt was in a different episode.
Belt was in the
Belt was in the second episode. Yeah,
because then they fell down into Ganon's lair.
I just remembered where Smoochy Time happens.
And then they destroy the lair.
So I was misremembering lair as being part of that first episode. You're right. Yeah. They never go to the lair in the first episode.
Because they destroy it, and then his castle's a mess.
Yes. Ganon's castle's a mess.
Wow, what a genius bookend. Good job, writer. Who wrote this genius episode?
And they even say something like, well, that'll keep Ganon busy for a while. His castle's a mess.
Yeah.
Like Ganon's walking around going, my castle.
But...
So Smoochy Time actually happens before all of this. I just remembered.
Zelda goes check Link's room.
She tries to suffocate a bird in the clothing. So like a bad bird, an enemy bird.
Cleaning.
Swoops into the castle and tries to attack Zelda, and she thwarts it by taking its head and shoves it into the dirty laundry pile of Link's clothing,
dirty laundry,
which presumably smells like a men's locker room or something like that. And
well, excuse me.
she shoves the bird's head in there, and I was like, is she killing this thing? What is she's like committing murder on this bird? But really then they justify it because when the bird's head comes out, it has the little like spirals over its head. Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And then she's like, tell Ganon if he comes here, I'll shove his head in the dirty laundry. And so then she relaxes and lays down on the bed for a second. And Link happens to open the door at that time, sees Zelda laying on the bed, and he goes, what does he say? Oh, Smoochy Time.
Great smooching time.
That's what it is.
And runs at her.
Runs at the bed, jumps at her, jumps to land on her body, but she rolls out of the way at the last second. Now, in this, let's do this. We're going to go to break here, okay? But when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the third episode, and maybe we'll return to the first a little bit. But I really want to explore this idea, this really strange tone in this show where it is thematically offensive and then like Zelda's kind of empowered too. It's a weird balancing act. I want to explore that a little bit when we get back. All right,
come back.
Cool. All right, I'll see you after this break, TC.
I'll be over. Don't even look at me until we're back.
Okay. End of Act 1.
Hi, I'm Ryan.
And I'm Mike.
And we are brothers-in-law. We both love beer and are amateur home brewers.
Wait, so does that make us brothers-in-law?
I believe so.
Every episode, we will talk about aspects of beer and home brewing.
But nothing super technical because we're learning this too.
So join us as we sit down together and dive into something beer-related.
Whether it's a little field research, tasting a certain beer style, or beers from a specific brewery,
talk about our experiences brewing beer at home, including our own solo brews, as well as themed competitions we'll set up along the way.
We will also talk about some of our favorite aspects of brewing, like hops, extra ingredients, building our brew cave, and more. And of course, our own misadventures that have happened along the way.
So, if you like beer, are home brewing already,
or if you have an interest in home brewing and don't know where to start,
join us on Brothers-in-Law Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And make sure to follow us on Twitter at Brothers-in-Law and check out our website, brothersinlaw.com.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, this is TC.
And this is Jim from the Studio Demands It podcast,
where every episode we take a demand from a hypothetical studio,
which could be you,
and challenge ourselves to conceptualize, pitch, and craft a film based on the stipulations
or the demands
we are given. We talk about movies all the time. Particularly, we complain about the choices made in the films we've seen.
We're nerds like that.
And, of course, like any good nerd does, we automatically assume that we could do better.
Even with the demands and restrictions that clearly must have been put on by a production.
So head on over to studiodemandsit.com and listen to our previous library of episodes. Our library of previous episodes. Our precious library, Jim. Our library of precious episodes.
You're you're a pirate, Smeagol.
Okay. So head on over to studiodemands.com to listen to our library of episodes.
And submit your demand for a future episode, too.
So go do that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, end of ad.
All right, we are back from the break.
We are back.
Now, TC, when we were on break, we just basically refilled our water glasses here, and we're just going to keep on going.
Yeah.
Because it is a late night, admittedly. While we were on break, you said, like, is this what you expected this episode to be?
Right. I just wanted to be sure that this is what your audience was expecting from
I'm
something.
fine with it. This is interesting. I guess if we technically had to categorize this episode, it would be under one of our deep dive categories. We do these kind of episodes where we talk about a thing and we talk about it a lot for a full episode. But what it made me realize while we were on break, as you asked me that, you said, is this what you were expecting this episode to be? And I said, yeah, pretty much. But I didn't, I realized it's to the degree of not shock and awe or dumbfoundedness, but like the degree of reaction that we're experiencing after watching the show. I didn't think that I would be so offended by some things, so confused by others,
Right.
so pleased with others, like
Right.
the sound effects and the names being right. You know what I mean? Like this was a whirlwind
This is
of emotions watching these 3 episodes. And so if it's us like just making sense of it all, I'm fine that that's what this episode is.
this is almost not to the extreme, but this show in itself is almost the Star Wars holiday special of this franchise,
I mean, maybe, yeah.
where you gotta be a big fan to indulge into this, right? This isn't, you're not gonna find someone's like, oh, you like Avatar: Last Airbender and you're checking out Dragon Quest here and there, like the Dragon Prince on Netflix. Check out the Legend of Zelda cartoon. No one's gonna do that.
If you've played the 25 plus games,
Yeah. This is more in the you got to be a hardcore fan to get there.
I think so. So we so one of the things I kind of want to talk about, as I said as we went to break, is there was so many times where, I mean, almost, I don't know if actually let's circle back to something.
Sure.
We were just about to touch maybe 10 minutes ago on Link is unlikable and all the rest. He finally by the 3rd episode, we had a little bit of an arc because the White Knight doesn't want to go into the mud, but Link is perfectly fine going into the mud because he wants to save the princess.
To save Zelda.
Yeah, to save Zelda.
He undercuts it by requesting a kiss
Yeah,
for
at the
saving her
end.
again. But it's almost like you could take all these as first draft ideas and then extrapolate from them to go, all right, so if Link is a reluctant hero, if he's got a little bit of a hard edge to him, you can evolve him into someone who doesn't think twice to save his friend, Zelda. I'd look to something like, if you don't mind the movie reference, something like Stardust. Stardust.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Matthew Vaughn directed. Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil, Claire Danes, Henry Cavill, Sienna Miller, Robert De Niro, Michelle Pfeiffer, Ricky Gervais. It's a proto Princess Bride homage movie that came out in the mid 2000s.
Claire Danes is kind of the lead. I remember this.
She's a
in
falling
fact, I saw
star.
it. And
You have to cross. It's a world beyond the wall. It's a fantasy world.
yeah, no, I think I'm remembering Stardust now.
But the
big
reason
thing
I'm
is Robert De
bringing-
Niro played, I think,
He's like a
homosexual pirate. Is
Yes,
that right?
he's like a cross-dressing pirate.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. I remember Stardust.
The reason I bring that up in terms of it's a fairy tale, so it follows some. You can fall in love in a
Matt
week.
Vaughn wrote that?
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
Well, Neil Gaiman wrote it. Matthew Vaughn co-wrote the screenplay and directed the movie.
Copy.
He did Kingsman and X-Men: The First Class. Anyway, the reason I bring that up in reference to this is Tristan or Tristran from the book. It's hard to say out loud. Is very much, hey, you're a star. I'm going to kidnap you and bring you to the girl I love. And he's just sort of verging on petulant, but he's still a charming, nice guy. And over the course of the week, he evolves into. He comes of age, he becomes a man, and it's no longer about the prize. It's about protecting the person he cares about. So that's a long roundabout way to get to episode 3 of Link.
Link jumps in the mud.
Link jumped in the mud. And I know that's like, I went way off the reservation to get to that. Sorry. Loud noises.
Your phone case is
it's a TARDIS.
Yeah, very nice. All right.
It makes me wonder if they learned anything in writing these episodes, if we watched episode 4 and 5 and 6, if it's like, okay, maybe it shouldn't just be Link like, give me a freaking kiss, princess, and turns into a little more likable of a dude.
Now,
boy, that was long-winded.
I think about like, we've talked about, we did an episode about the very first episode of season 3. Dan McCoy and I did an episode where we looked at some commercials for Zelda games. Mm-hmm. And there was an era in commercials in the world, in America at least, kind of the mid to early 90s, where everything was gross and it was gack and slime and disgusting and things had snot and everything was wide angle lenses and kind of bad sweaty angles and that was like the aesthetic, and it was cool.
What are you kids doing in there? Get out of here, Mom.
Yeah, there was a lot of that,
We've got attitude.
Yeah, the 90s commercial aesthetic. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's an 80s aesthetic a little bit where it was this kind of, if a 5 to 8-year-old is watching this cartoon and it's let's just say it's a boy who needs to feel empowered a little bit. Parents are there making you clean your room and all these kinds of things. Maybe there are some themes here that are actually not appropriate, but like, so once in a while I'll watch YouTube videos or read things on the internet about like people who write literally write kids episodes.
Right.
Okay. And they'll talk about these larger themes that are happening, but when it's executed, it's really, I'll just say simple, with respect, simple.
Yes.
How it's executed. And I'm not trying to say that, I don't know. I'm wondering if even by accident. Okay, this is what I'm positing.
I think I'm following here. Continue.
Could this be people, the company, I don't have it with me, the company that actually made these, I'll see if I can find it here on the things. The animation company that wrote these episodes, Nintendo just basically outsourced this back in. This is before there was really like the big Nintendo brand.
Yeah.
This is before everything needed to be, these days Nintendo is akin to Disney with making sure that their characters are protected and all of that kind of stuff. Also, Nintendo's much more aggressive these days with getting marketing out there. You can buy, I'm wearing a Zelda shirt right now that I bought at a Target. I didn't have to buy it like some cool nerdy
comic book convention.
Yeah, which is also awesome.
Yes, yeah.
But like the point is that there's Zelda shirts at Target now. Mm-hmm. And a few of them, quite frankly, which is even
you have
weirder.
Options. You have options.
So with that said, though, maybe if a person or a writer spends their career writing kids television, there just becomes a vernacular that they start using. And yes, we can be offended by Link's nature and all that kind of stuff. But is it possible, TC, that in some way this is just a product of that time and style, and maybe at the time it wasn't as offensive as we're feeling it is now?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I feel like you're probably onto something there, that of the era of writing for little boys, which then makes me feel pretty impressed by the fact that Zelda is empowered at times.
Yeah.
So the first thing she does is punch him in the face.
That's true.
The first interaction she has with Link is punch him in the face.
So if you're going beat by beat, he looks at her in an inappropriate way.
Yeah.
And comments about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right.
A few seconds later, she comes up and off screen punches him in the face for doing that.
He opens the door going, "Oh, I'm going to get my kiss."
And he gets at least slapped in the face or something.
Don't you ever whistle at me again.
Is what she said.
I may never whistle again.
And then he says that.
Yeah.
So like Zelda is there. She's there.
There's some girl power here. And it's ahead of its time too, because at this stage in Zelda mythology or the franchise itself, she hadn't been empowered like she is now, right?
She spends the first game being totally trapped and only appears at the end.
Yep.
She spends the second game falling asleep in the beginning and waking up at the end.
So, and that's all they had to work with. It was progressive of them to give her the little bit of empowerment that they did. Also undercut by Sprite's mere existence of being like,
totally.
"Oh, Link, I don't care that you're a jerk.
Yeah, I think you're the greatest." You. And then there's this.
What, you don't like short girls?
She said that. And all of her poses are borderline provocative. It's inappropriate. But There was one scene, there's a battle scene, and I think it was the third episode where oh no, do you know what it was? I think it was the fabric in the second episode when all the mops and the towels and everything gets out of control.
Yeah.
Some moblins come in and a fight scene ensues. However, a big blanket gets wrapped over Link. He does nothing.
And
Zelda uses her crossbow and the boomerang and defeats everything, and then goes and gets Link out of the blanket or whatever, zaps the blanket away.
Way to go, hero.
Yeah. And he says something like, well, I'm glad I saved the day, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So is there a conversation going on there?
It is interesting that it almost feels like maybe there was one person in the writer's room who would sneak that stuff in while the rest of the guys like, what if he whistles at her butt? Yeah, we should do that. We should whistle at her butt. I don't know, guys. Maybe Zelda throws the boomerang and kills some of those things. Yeah, whatever.
It's possible. It's possible. So I was actually pleased with the action that Zelda took. In fact, every once in a while, she'll kind of submit to him.
Yeah.
Which is odd. Every once in a while, but again, I think this submitting. So like this idea of Link being belted to her and saying, "I'm not taking the belt off till you kiss me." Essentially, yeah, he's kind of doing it with his rude dude attitude that's supposed to probably be playful, and it's not.
Yeah,
and she's kind of, I think, supposed to be playful back, saying, "No way." Man, I don't know.
All right, well, I guess you've earned it. And then going in for it, and then Sprite shows up and goes, "Oh, hey, your belt's stuck. Let me fix that for you." Kapow!
Zaps it away.
Yeah.
Did you notice that when they're about to go in for the kiss, the background starts to glow yellow, and there's actually some like refraction that comes around them? They did a special effect behind them.
There was a couple points of animation where there was a lot of effort put in.
Yeah, there was some focal points. There was like literal.
They did focus pulls on a couple of shots too. It's very strange. And I spoke of the action earlier, the movement and choreography, especially being cell drawn, hand drawn.
Yeah,
no computer shortcuts here.
That's saying something.
It was. It's impressive to see the amount of effort that went into the action sequences.
Yeah.
So occasionally there is points, very very brief though they may be, where it's. Well, that's some good animation.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, when I saw them going in for that kiss when they were belted together,
yeah,
and they just had this back and forth where Zelda was essentially not consenting, the background starts to glow as if it's like this really beautiful special moment. And I rewind to being 8 years old, and if I wasn't aware of the context, and I saw a drawing of a pretty girl and a character that I'm placing myself on, even accidentally, because I'm an 8-year-old boy watching this television show, and he's about to kiss her and it glows in the background, that registers as a good thing to me as an 8-year-old.
Sure.
That's like, wow, it almost happened. Wasn't that great? It almost happened. He almost kissed the pretty girl.
Wow, we almost got it. This is just like moonlighting. My parents watch that at night.
But what I'm saying is the writers obviously thought that was a special moment then. I don't think it was tongue in cheek. Like they took the effort, the creators took the effort to put this special effect in the background, like, yeah, we're really going to bring this drama up.
Yeah.
And
She's
make it
finally
special.
agreed to it. It's finally going to happen here in episode 2.
Which makes me feel like the writers are significantly less woke tthan we're positing. You know what I mean? It's a very complicated thing to process.
I just jokingly referenced moonlighting, but like Sam and Diane from Cheers, to go back to that era of will they or won't they?
Okay.
Do you think that could have been a part of the conversation of like, you know, like the will they or won't they of Sam and Diane on Cheers? That's what we're going to do on this kid show. I'm so clever. It's Zelda and Link. Will they or won't they?
I think
more like when they.
I think you're onto something there. I really do. The villain's motive is completely binary every episode, and it seems to repeat.
I just get the other side of the Triforce to complete his 2-sided collection.
Yeah, only 2 Triforces in this show, and the Triforces talk, which is a whole other thing that I'm not going to worry about.
That's weird.
That's like off canon, but but in other ways, like one thing that was really impressive. What was really
for
impressive,
this show?
Yeah,
impressive for this show
was the accurate use of names of things.
There you go. You're going back to that. Well, the accurate the naming conventions of this. When the White Knight shows up, his name is Prince Facade.
Facade, yeah.
So we're sitting here going, it's Ganon. Ganon's the.
We actually said it, didn't we?
It's so obvious it's Ganon. And then they do the. Meanwhile, at Ganon's castle, Ganon's like,
If only I could get to this facade. I've ran into facade before. I've dealt with him.
Yeah.
So then that was a surprise.
Hey, wait a second. Ganon doesn't go for the Triforce in that episode.
He's just trying to.
He decides to teach the White Knight a lesson.
I think so, yeah.
And then I guess Link is there.
And they're not even at the castle. If there was ever a perfect time to go after the Triforce Ganon, it's the one time they're not at the castle. You know who? He's Gargamel. That's
he is. No, but that's a great comparison. Yeah, and these are of similar times too. The Smurfs and all
Smurfs,
that.
yeah.
Similar times in animation.
Or Gummy Bears would be about this era as well, where it's a very. We can think fondly back at these shows, but when you actually go back and watch them, which I did try to go back and watch Gummy Bears and realize just how
not good.
It's meant for children. It's meant for 6, 7, 8-year-olds. And
is this show meant for children? But it was a couple writers thought they were doing some good. Not, I don't want to say good adult writing, but like
it's.
You see where I'm going with this?
Yes, I think so. I think that the target demo, the marketing team was probably like, who plays the Nintendo games? 10-year-olds, right? So let's make a show for 10-year-olds.
You just sound like a 40-year-old Link now. It's like the same voice.
My corporate businessman, like,
yeah. Well, that's what it is.
Gotta get a little more like this. Okay, here we go. 10-year-olds play the games. Make the show for 10-year-olds.
And then some guys in the writer rooms are like, well, I'm 32 and I play Zelda too, so I'm going to put 32-year-old jokes in here also.
maybe
it's smooching time,
or it's or you know what? I think that this was like a European company that actually did the animation. And I don't have that information right now. I'm actually trying to look really, really quickly here on.
And you're vamping as you do it. I love it when I have to make Jim do that. Jim, I need to get
myself.
I need to get the charger for the battery. Vamp.
Hey, allegedly this came out in 1989. It was later in the 80s than I thought. 89 lines up with this 90s. Everything's so gross.
Everything's extreme. Everything's got attitude.
So that's what it is. Link has attitude because that's just how maybe characters were written at that time.
Yeah. I feel like we've pulled back enough layers to go, oh, you know what? You're right. It's that everything's rad. Everything's radical and tubular.
Yeah.
There were probably some writers on the staff who thought they were doing a Sam and Diane for kids.
Yeah.
Cheers is enough of a popular show that referencing that isn't going to lose your audience, right?
Oh, probably half of them, but it's okay.
It's the Pam and Jim of the era. How's that?
Maybe. Except that's a discredit to Pam and Jim, but
it's the Ross and Rachel of the era.
Oh gosh, now we're back to the older ones.
It's the
you have not
Charlie
seen
and the Waitress of the era. There we go. Always Sunny.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. Now let me maybe we can take the last like 10 minutes of the episode here. And even a year ago, you made a quick joke in the A Silent Protagonist episode about how every 2 years Netflix cries Zelda and everyone loses their mind.
Yeah,
because there's going to be a Zelda show,
and then there's not.
Right.
Yeah,
and then there's not. I don't want to date this episode, but as we record this right now, there's a big news push for Tom Holland playing Link in a Zelda.
I'm Tom Holland and I'm going to play Link.
And there's no talk.
I'm Spider-Man.
If it's not, he's everything. I like Tom Holland quite a bit.
I do too.
Frankly.
I didn't mean to make fun. I just think he's this cute little Englishman.
I don't know. I think Tom Holland really does kind of bring it. But anyway,
he's got a great everyman charm to him.
There's absolutely a Super Mario Brothers movie being made right now. I think Illumination's doing it. I know. I'm a little worried.
They should use our script.
Well, so Illumination is doing a Super Mario Brothers movie, which is a little bit why Mario didn't show up in Wreck-It Ralph 2, because originally he was in the script.
Sure.
Anyways, Nintendo's doing a great job with having their relationship with Universal, with the Nintendo Land theme parks that are coming out, and stuff like that. There's even a couple drafts of like Zelda areas in these theme park lands. And if
a Zelda show could come into existence?
That's what I want to ask, but I understand that that's a 40-minute conversation as I ask it, so I don't want to do
Well,
it.
to keep it brief,
Yeah.
to animate a Zelda show, animation would allow.
Let me ask this.
Okay.
What would this show be now? If we take all the filters and the layers of what it was because it's a product of its time, because the one thing it got right was the accuracy. You know what I mean? But everything else, the tone was all wrong.
Right.
What is that show now based on the kinds of kids shows that are out there now? If it were to be reimagined now as a Saturday morning, Nicktoons, whatever.
I referenced Avatar: The Last Airbender a bit earlier, which of the past decade of cartoons that aren't just go to school, yeah, right,
Yeah.
that have a little more to them. Avatar: The Last Airbender has some pathos and mythos, a mythology to it, to do something in that vein of there's stakes. The world is at risk, and if it were to be a little cuter,
Is it serialized or is it episodic like this?
It's episodic, but enough status quo that you could pick it up anywhere. Not like this. This is This is straight up serialized, where it's
absolutely start back where you started.
It's just status quo. Yeah. If it was cuter, if they did this now and they made it a little cuter, I think you could get away with Link barely talking at all.
Yeah.
I think you could have a very quiet protagonist, someone who's like, there's a bit of skill in whenever they age up Maggie in Simpsons episodes.
Oh, really?
Of not giving her a voice.
Really?
They will say, Maggie, get off the phone. She's always on the phone, and then just cut to Maggie, who's a teenager, going and hanging up the phone. Right?
Oh.
They play with the concept of Maggie not having a true voice. She's only said a handful of words in the entire history of The Simpsons. So I think there is a way to craft a character in that cute fashion that is quiet, and letting Zelda be the voice, and letting Ganon be the voice, Ganondorf probably, letting other characters speak for Link.
Yeah.
I think that would be more of if it was something in the vein of like The Wonderful World of Gumball, which is wacky, but also got some complex writing to it. If you were going something more towards Avatar: The Last Airbender, then Link would certainly have a voice. I feel like a good writing team would follow the Legend of Zelda. They would go from game 1 to game 2 to Link to the Past and just tell the story of the entire game history.
I think Zelda would probably have the same amount of empowerment. Maybe not as much of the dialogue back and forth type stuff.
The snappy tete-a-tete kind of dialogue that they think they're writing in this one,
That they think they're writing right, exactly.
they could get it right in a modern version.
Yeah.
And
I don't mind saying that like an 8-year-old David would have a full crush on that Zelda in that show. When you don't know what's going on and you don't really understand like the full story and stuff like that. She was cool enough,
cute enough.
Yeah, right. That I don't know if I would have noticed as a child that she was occasionally submitting, so to speak.
Being harassed and often objectified.
Yeah. But she sticks up for herself every time it happens.
Oh yeah.
She full on sticks up for herself every single time.
So there is something to that there.
It's weird.
Yeah, there's a couple ways to approach a cartoon Zelda now, and knowing that Illumination is doing Mario, if Illumination's also doing Zelda, it's going to be cute. It's going to be cutesy. It's going to be Minions. It's going to be their style of. It's not going to be for us.
Yeah,
It's not going to be for adults. It's not going to be for the hardcore fans. It's going to be for the hardcore fans as kids.
Yeah. I think here's another point that maybe we're circling back to the episode you and I did on Studio Demands It a little bit, where we were talking about how would you make a Zelda film. We both in that episode agreed that you probably shouldn't make one, but we tried. And I just realized that Illumination doing a Mario movie, you just nailed it. It's not for the 30 plus year olds that want to reminisce. It's for their children.
Yeah.
So really the reason, if I'm being frank, the reason Nintendo of America Nintendo of America's marketing department algorithm has decided a Mario movie must exist because of sales numbers and blah, 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 which is absolutely why that choice was made.
Yeah.
And they also decided it should be Illumination because now we want the kids my nephew who's 5 right now, he can see the fun Mario movie and keep buying Mario games.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe there's a little bit with Zelda, but I hope it's not wishful thinking because this is a Zelda podcast in which we really adore the series. It feels like Nintendo's not particularly interested in making like a Zelda experience for 30-plus-year-olds children. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
I think that's the one where they're willing to kind of have that. Actually, now that I think about it, all of Zelda now has this kind of nostalgic slant to it. Now that they have decided to make a timeline and decided to do all these, you know what I mean?
If you look at the two most recent games, are not geared towards children. The Mario games are always going to be geared towards children. So the additional content to that franchise should be geared towards children.
Yeah.
Zelda has the Adventures. The Legend of Zelda.
Adventures of Zelda.
The Legend of Zelda has grown with the audience, and that goes back to our previous season episode where I talked about Mario has a voice, Link does not, and it's the difference between the voice of Nintendo versus the legend of Nintendo. The what is the icon of Nintendo, and I think that goes to doing a cutesy Zelda, though I just pitched it at you. Yeah. If they went that way, I think it would be that way.
Maybe.
But you're right. The games are geared towards the nostalgia and the adults. And I think if they were to do a show, if they were to do a film.
I just realized the reason there was a cartoon back in 1989 is because the audience was still only 12 at most.
Yeah.
That audience is now 42 or whatever it is, part of my math. And that's why there maybe wouldn't be a Zelda cartoon now.
Right.
Now, if it did have to get done, if the Nintendo algorithm said there must be a Zelda game or Zelda show and it must, satisfy 5-year-olds, I think the quick version is they would probably take the Wind Waker aesthetic, the already cell shaded aesthetic of some of those games, and do some really playful, not episodic, serialized, one-offs in that kind of universe, linked in some goofy stuff, Toon Link bouncing around, getting shot out of cannons and stuff like that. That's probably what it would turn into.
And really, I would go so far as to say you could do a serious, I'll keep using Avatar: The Last Airbender because that's how darn good that show is, version if it was animated, or a live action one, but also have 2-minute version shorts of the Link.
Interesting, maybe.
There's potential in both, but you are right that the audience for the content of Legend of Zelda has grown. It is adult content, not adult content. You know what I mean?
But I know, it's the 30+ content. I think my nieces will still play Zelda, but they talk about Mario. To be honest.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And anyway, any closing thoughts about watching these first 3 episodes? It took me a while. I'm glad we had this conversation. It helped me kind of come around because when we first started talking about this, I was a little bit shocked. You know what I mean?
I agree.
It was jarring to watch it, not out of context, but so far removed from when it was originally aired.
To sit here and go, what? Why?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
but to find enjoyment in it at the same time. That's why I'm going to go back to calling it that Star Wars holiday special of the Zelda franchise.
Part of me thinks like, oh no, if any boy modeled themselves off of Link.
After this Link?
Yeah, that's what, you could see adults having certain problems later in their life, honestly.
Your parents are going to need to talk to the dean of admissions after what your son did.
Yeah, and or marriage counselor and stuff like that. But so that's a little concerning. But anyways, I can't get off that, to be honest.
Ultimately, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone but the most devout fans.
I don't think like you sit your kids down in front of this now and watch it.
Yeah, I'm not going to recommend this and say, oh, this is so good. You totally got to see it. This is... Watch playthroughs of games or play the games. That is the true experience of The Legend of Zelda, is you having the control of Link in your hands and living those adventures. watching someone's poor interpretation of it is only going to make you laugh at how bad it is or break your heart for how bad it is.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find the appreciation of the sound effects like you did, and I love the score of these games from the very beginning. So there's all those nice little things.
Yeah, there was a nice touch where in one of the episodes, Ganon was out of his normal space. He was like out in the field or whatever, but he started to plot. He started to come up, he started to plot his motives. And in the background, immediately, the Dungeon 1, the music from Dungeon 1, came in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't matching the setting, it was matching his motive.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that was really well done. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that was really kind of fun and nice to watch and experience. All right, cool. Well, I think we call it there, TC.
I do too. Yeah. If your listeners are interested in hearing us explore what could a film version of this be, what could another TV show, you could listen to last season's Studio Demands It, not to plug my own show.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You could go back to either the silent protagonist episode that we did on this show, which everybody saw, or everybody can see on this feed. I did throw the first half of your Studio Demands It episode on this feed.
Oh, great.
So I think it's buried between the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2 as a bonus episode.
Good.
People can listen to the first half, or they can just go right to Studio Demands It and check out the Legend of Zelda episode that you and I did a year ago.
And we had a new one coming up this season as well. You're going to guest star again.
So because you're in town, you're working over the weekend here, but then after the weekend, I think we're going to get together one more time, probably in this very room.
Yep.
I have no idea what we're talking about, but I'll be on your show.
That's right.
It'll be good times. All right, TC. So besides a little bit of a Studio Demands It plug, a contextually appropriate Studio Demands It plug, what else would you like to share with our listeners?
If you want to see, obviously, totally listen to Studio Demands if you want to hear the writing process of film with me and Jim. But if you're interested in seeing some of our content, you can go to youtube.com/redactedmedia. We have 100 short films that we've filmed over the past 10 years. David is in several of them.
I'm in a few of them. Lucky enough to be.
Yep. Various genres of comedy and horror and drama and sci-fi and action and what have you. So if you want to check that out, you can follow me on social media, Instagram and Twitter. Twitter is me mostly yelling at people, so maybe don't follow me.
Oh, you're a Twitter yeller.
It's the one place I can get my aggressions out when I'm mad at the world. Like,
wow,
you're an idiot. But so you can follow me on Instagram at TC's Big Head for the joys I find in my life.
Everything's prettier on Instagram.
Filmmaking and art and storytelling.
Fair enough.
I realize now that I've been plugging my Twitter, but my Twitter feed is a lot of, what the hell are you doing in this world?
I see. Fair enough, TC. Oops. People can find me on Twitter at Raptor Paint. I personally don't tweet too much these days. But you can also find me on Instagram at Raptor Paint. And the show, of course, is Another Zelda Pod on Twitter, Another Zelda Podcast on Instagram. You can go to our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com, where in which we have the library of all of our episodes for the show. And actually, we're starting to build a fairly comprehensive blog on our website there, TC. I'm not even sure if you know that yet. But
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, about twice a month now. I have a series of 5 or 6 writers, and they write Zelda articles, and it goes up on the website.
That's great.
And it's wonderful. Many of those writers appeared in the episode just before this one in our Spooky Spots episode, which is always fun to take the blog writers and include them in these like group episodes that we do.
Yeah.
Anyways. So really, anotherzeldapodcast.com will get you everything you need to know. But if you want to find the show, the actual podcast, you can find it on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and YouTube. Pretty much just by searching Another Zelda Podcast. It's a pretty specific name and usually pings the appropriate results.
It's this one.
And that's that. So thank you so much. And TC, I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank
I'll
you,
see you in a
David.
few days on Studio Demands It.
Thank you, everyone, for accepting my presence here on the show again.
Indeed. Now you may have lost track a little bit, but of course my co-host Kate, who I think we might be able to find ways to have her come back on season 4. I'm very excited about that.
Excellent.
Unofficially speaking, I truly hope that that'll be a reality. She always had a little bit of an outro. Do you recall?
I don't.
It's that okay bye. I think I just did it.
You did just do it. Yeah.
Hey TC.
Yeah?
I'll see you later.
Okay, bye.
Good enough for me.